Good evening and welcome to Be Yourself Unapologetically. Tonight is going to be a very, very sensitive subject, and I really want to give you all a trigger warning because this is hard for some people to listen to, and it's reflective of how hard it is for somebody to go through. But as always, you know me, there's always hope. So tonight's title is called The Quiet Echo, Understanding the Long Shadow of Childhood Sexual Abuse and the Light Beyond It. Before we begin, I want to gently place a little note at the start of today's episode. What we're talking about today is tender. It's something that too many people have lived through, and something that shapes far too many lives quietly and invisibly. We're going to be talking about the psychological and emotional effects of childhood sexual abuse. There will be no descriptions or graphic content, but the subject itself can bring things up. So please, if at any point this feels too heavy, pause, breathe, step outside, drink some water. If you ever need to talk to someone, please reach out to a helpline, a therapist, or someone you trust. You do not have to carry this alone. This episode isn't here to reopen wounds, it's here to understand them. And more importantly, it's here to remind you what happens to you does not define who you become. Because healing, real healing, is possible. The brain can change, the heart can soften again, and the soul can remember who it was before the hurt. Today I want to walk with you gently through the psychology of what happens to a child when that trust, the most sacred trust, is broken. And how even in adulthood, those echoes can still be felt in our relationships, in our nervous systems, in the way we see ourselves. But I also want to show you the other side, what healing looks like, feels like, and how science now proves that recovery is not a dream, it's a biological reality. So take a deep breath with me, in through your nose, hold and let it go. You are safe here, you are seen, and you are not broken beyond repair. Let's begin. If you're listening to this and already feel a lump in your throat, that's okay. It means your body remembers and it's trying to protect you. That's one of the most important truths about trauma we'll explore today. Your body's reactions, your fears, your walls, they were never your weakness, they were survival. So as we move forward, remember this. Your younger self did the best they could with what they had, and that was enough. So, understanding the impact on the child's brain and body. When we talk about childhood sexual abuse, it's not just an emotional wound, It's something that changes how a child's brain, body, and nervous system develops. Because when you grow up in fear or in a world where safety is uncertain, your entire biology adapts to survive. You see, the human brain is a social organ. From the moment we're born, it's designed to seek comfort, touch, safety, and connection. That's how our nervous system learns regulation. A calm, responsive caregiver literally teaches a child's brain what peace feels like. But when that safety is broken, especially through something as violating as sexual abuse, the brain rewires itself around survival instead of trust. The parts of the brain responsible for danger detection, like the amygdala, become overreactive. It learns to stay on guard all the time, constantly scanning for threats, even when there are none. Meanwhile, the part that helps us feel calm and safe, the prefrontal cortex, struggles to fully develop those soothing pathways. So instead of living, the child learns to endure. That's the biological essence of trauma. The body stays ready for danger long after the danger has passed. And this isn't a conscious choice. It's the brain's way of saying, I will never let that happen again. When a child experiences abuse from someone they know or trust, it adds another layer. Confusion. The brain associates love with danger, comfort with threat. It's what psychologists call disorganized attachment. The person who was supposed to protect them became the one who hurt them, and that creates a lifelong conflict inside the nervous system. As adults, that same pattern often plays out as anxiety in relationships, fear of closeness, or even a strange sense of guilt for wanting love, because to the body, love once meant danger. Many survivors grow up believing something is wrong with them. They don't understand why they flinch when someone gets too close, why they freeze during conflict, or why they sabotage relationships that feel too good. But the truth is, it's not weakness, it's conditioning. Their nervous system learned that safety was unpredictable, and unpredictability became the norm. Children who endure sexual abuse often develop what researchers call complex trauma, or CPTSD. It's not one single traumatic event, it's trauma that shapes identity itself. It affects self-worth, memory, trust, and emotional regulation. Neuroscientist Dr. Bessel van der Kolk explains it beautifully in his book, The Body Keeps the Score. He says that trauma isn't just a story about something that happened in the past. It's a current imprint on the body that changes how a person lives in the present. That's why so many survivors describe feeling disconnected from themselves, almost like living behind glass. They may not remember everything, but their body does. It remembers in sensations, in startle response, in hypervigilance. Even something as simple as being praised or touched kindly can trigger panic, because the body confuses safe touch with unsafe touch. And yet, here's the miracle. The brain is not fixed. Even though trauma rewires it, healing can rewire it too. There's a concept in neuroscience called neuroplasticity. This is used a lot with neuro-linguistic programming. The brain's ability to create new connections, new pathways, and new responses. That's the light we hold on to in this conversation. What trauma damages, connection can restore. So while a child may grow up with a body that doesn't feel safe and a heart that learned to hide, there is always a way home. If you're listening and recognizing yourself in these words, please remember your reactions were never wrong. Your body was protecting you, and it still can. Only now you can teach it that safety is possible again. Healing begins the moment you stop blaming yourself for the way you survived. How it shows up in adulthood. When a child grows up with unprocessed trauma, the echoes don't disappear when they turn 18. They travel with them quietly into adulthood, not as clear memories, but as patterns. Patterns that shape how they love, how they react, and how they see themselves in the world. Many survivors describe adulthood as a constant balancing act between wanting closeness and fearing it, between craving love and distrusting it. And that's because their brain still associates vulnerability with danger. You might see it in relationships that feel intense at the start, then suddenly collapse. You might see it in people who become people pleasers, desperate to keep the peace because conflict feels life-threatening. Or in the ones who shut down emotionally, who seem distant, not because they don't care, but because they learned early that being seen could lead to pain. Psychologists often call this the survival of the child's self. It means that even though you've grown, a part of you is still protecting the child who once felt powerless. The protection shows up as anxiety, perfectionism, disassociation, hyper-independence, or avoidance, and every single one of those is a brilliant, if painful, adaptation. It's your mind's way of saying, if I stay in control, I can't get hurt again. But there's a cost to living that way, because when you never feel safe enough to rest, you also never feel safe enough to truly live. Research from the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, known as the ACEs study, found that survivors of childhood sexual abuse are more likely to experience chronic stress, depression, anxiety, and even physical health issues like heart disease or autoimmune conditions later in life. Now, why is that? Because trauma isn't just psychological, it's physiological. It lives in the nervous system, in the endocrine system, in the way the body regulates cortisol and adrenaline. It's as if the body forgets how to relax. Even moments of happiness can feel suspicious, like calm is just the quiet before another storm. For many survivors, trust becomes complicated. They might attract partners who mirror the chaos of their childhood, not because they want to suffer, but because chaos feels familiar. The brain often mistakes familiarity for safety, even when it hurts. Others go the opposite way. They isolate, keeping everyone at arm's length. They might look confident and capable on the outside, but inside, there's often a deep fear of being truly known, because being known once led to harm. That's why healing isn't just about getting over it. It's about relearning safety. It's about teaching the body that not everyone is dangerous, that love can exist without control, that peace doesn't have to be earned through silence. And here's where it gets hopeful. Even though trauma shapes the brain, healing experiences shape it too. Moments of kindness, therapy, self-compassion, secure relationships, all of these help build the way neural pathways that were once shaped by fear. Every time you calm yourself after panic, you're rewiring your nervous system. Every time you tell yourself, I'm safe now, your brain listens. That's not wishful thinking, that's neuroplasticity in action. If you've ever wondered why it feels so hard to trust or to love or to let people in, please know this is not because you are broken. It's because you adapted, and those adaptations kept you alive. Healing doesn't erase the past, but it teaches your nervous system that the past is past, that the danger is no longer here, and that every person you are now can give safety to the child you once were. Breaking the silence and reclaiming the power. One of the hardest parts of healing from childhood sexual abuse isn't just what happened, it's what followed. The silence. So many survivors grow up believing what happened to them was their fault, and that belief does not appear out of nowhere. It's born from shame. Shame that was never theirs to carry. You see, when a child experiences something terrifying, their brain has two options. Either believe that the world is unsafe, or believe that they did something wrong. And because believing the world is unsafe feels too overwhelming, the child often turns it inward. They think, it must be me. That's how shame takes root, as a survival mechanism. And for many, it becomes the quiet voice that follows them into adulthood, whispering that they're unworthy, damaged, or somehow to blame. But here's the truth. Shame only survives in silence. The moment you speak it, even to yourself, even in a whisper, it starts to lose its grip. For years, psychologists believed that healing from trauma meant talking through every detail. But we know now it's not about reliving the story. It's about reclaiming your voice within it. It's about finding language for something that once felt unspeakable. When you put words to your experience, you reconnect the parts of your brain that trauma once separated. The amygdala, which holds the emotional memory, and the prefrontal cortex, which helps make sense of it, begin to work together again. That's why therapy, writing, and even gentle conversation can be so powerful. That's the reason why I wanted to share this tonight. They're not just emotional acts, they're neurological repair. And it doesn't always have to be loud. Sometimes healing sounds like writing a letter you never send, or crying for the first time without feeling guilty for it, or saying out loud, "It wasn't my fault," and meaning it, if only for a moment. Every time you reclaim a piece of your story, you reclaim a piece of yourself. When survivors begin to speak their truth, whether that's in therapy, through art, in support groups, or even privately, they begin to reverse the isolation trauma created. Connection is the antidote to shame, because shame thrives on secrecy. But connection reminds you that you are not alone. You are not your trauma. You are the person who lived through it. And that makes you powerful in ways most people will never understand. Neuroscience now shows that empowerment, feeling in control of your choices and your voice, helps regulate the same nervous system that trauma once hijacked. It's why advocacy, creativity, and self-expression often become key parts of recovery. They give back what was once taken, autonomy. Reclaiming your power doesn't always mean confronting the past. Sometimes it simply means choosing peace in the present, choosing to rest when you used to push through, choosing to trust again even when it feels risky, choosing to love yourself enough to stop carrying somebody else's shame. If you're listening to this and thinking, "I've never told anyone," please know your silence kept you safe once, but you don't have to live there anymore. You don't owe anyone your story, but you do owe yourself your freedom. And that freedom starts the moment you stop blaming yourself for surviving. The science of healing and hope. If there's one thing I want you to take away from today's episode, it's this. Healing isn't only emotional, it's biological. Your brain, your body, and your nervous system, they were built to adapt. And what was once wired for survival can be rewired for safety. For a long time, trauma research focused on damage, on what was broken. But in recent decades, science has turned towards repair. And what it shows is remarkable. The brain never stops changing. Let's talk about neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections. Every thought, every breath, every new experience you have creates tiny shifts in your neural pathways. When you learn to calm your body after panic or reach out for support when you want to isolate, you're literally creating new patterns in your brain, ones that say, "I am safe now." Dr. Bruce Perry, a leading child psychiatrist, describes healing as repetition of regulation, meaning that the more you experience moments of calm, trust, or joy, even small ones, the more your brain learns that peace is normal, not dangerous. It's not about pretending past didn't happen. It's about teaching your nervous system that the present is different. Therapies like EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing help the brain process trauma memories that were once stuck. Somatic therapy helps the body release stored tension and fear. And trauma-informed talk therapy reconnects the logical and emotional parts of the brain so that memories can finally be integrated, not relived. Meditation, yoga, grounding exercises, breath work. These aren't just trends. They're ways to regulate the vagus nerve, the body's calming system. When you slow your breathing, you send a biological signal to the brain. We're safe now. We can rest. Even something simple as human touch, a hug from someone you trust, or holding your own hand, releases oxytocin, the hormone of safety and bonding. That's science's way of showing what the soul already knows. Connection heals. One of my favorite things about trauma recovery research is what's known as post-traumatic growth. It's the idea that after trauma, people can develop deeper empathy, clearer purpose, and stronger resilience than before. Not because the trauma was meant to happen, it never was, but because the human spirit, given safety and time, will always reach for the light. Healing doesn't look like never being triggered again. It looks like recognizing the trigger and knowing what to do with it. It looks like catching yourself in old patterns and gently choosing new ones. It looks like forgiveness and forgiving yourself for the ways you once survived. The truth is, the same brain that once protected you through fear can now protect you through love. It can learn new rhythms, new memories, and new meanings. You are not frozen in the past. You are rewiring with every moment of awareness, every act of care, every breath that says, I'm still here, I made it. And that's not just emotional recovery, that's neuroscience. If you take a moment right now to place your hand on your heart, feel that steady rhythm. That's life, your life moving forward. Your body may have been the place of pain once, but it can also become the place of peace. You don't need to rush it. Healing is not a race, it's a reunion. A reunion with the parts of you that always deserved love. If you've stayed with me through this episode, take a slow, deep breath and let it out gently. You just listen to words that are heavy, but they carry light too. The light of understanding, of truth, and of quiet strength. What happened to you was not your fault. It was not your responsibility to prevent it. It is not your destiny to live in its shadow forever. The child you once were did not deserve what happened, but the adult you are now, they deserve peace, they deserve softness, and they deserve safety. And safety begins with awareness, the gentle noticing that you are here, right now, breathing, surviving, and growing. Healing doesn't come in one grand moment of closure. It comes in tiny ones, moments when you choose compassion instead of criticism, Moments when you rest instead of run. Moments when you finally tell yourself, I'm not broken, I'm becoming. You might still have days when the past feels close. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. Recovery isn't a straight line, and I say this often. It's a spiral, and every loop brings you closer to the center. As we close today, I want you to picture your younger self, the smaller version of you who once carried so much fear. Imagine walking up to them, kneeling down and whispering, you made it, you're safe, now I've got you. Because that's what healing really is. It's giving the child inside of you the safety they were always meant to have. You can start again, not from the pain, but from the possibility. Before I go, I want to remind you, you are not alone in this journey. If anything in this episode has brought things up for you, please reach out for support, talk to someone you trust, or contact a professional or local helpline. There is help, there is hope, and there are people who will listen. You deserve to be heard, you deserve to be healed, and you deserve to feel safe in your own skin. Thank you for being here with me today, for your courage, your honesty, and your heart. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You're not just surviving, you're learning to live again.